I experience that we are in a period of separation from the rest of life on Earth, that many humans and the systems built by humans have come out of relationship with the rest of the web of life and with the sacred planet that evolved us, that birthed us, that is an extension of our body. And I trust that it is part of the evolution of life on Earth and that it is serving the intelligence and the becoming of the Earth. But while we are in it, those of us that are acutely aware and feel in our bodies that separation, it's very painful, and I feel a lot of grief. And it can be hard to imagine how we get from the dominant death culture that we're in, where our legacy, political, economic, and social systems are essentially sucking up the earth and turning it into money, and are stuck in this endless cycle of hunger that has no end, and move out of that into a life-affirming culture and economic systems, governance systems, social systems that bring us into return to being a part of the web of life and really belonging there and trusting our belonging there.
We have done an enormous amount in the world of industrialization and modernization in so many ways. A lot of consequence, a lot of damage, and also a lot of industrious, incredible feats of engineering and humans going to new places and things like that. But it's very much, I think, constructed from humans versus the world, or us against the world. And that distinction is a utterly defining logic to the last several centuries. And it has required an othering in the world that right now it can no longer be allowed to not accept that that's happening. That there has to be an outside to the successes of a certain logic, and that outside is no longer possible to keep outside. It never was outside, it's always been a part of it. So that othering that I think happens at the basis of modern thinking, that intrinsic externalization of something is an internalization of others, rather than seeing a kind of inclusive, interdependent whole, is a driving logic that has brought about the meta crisis in a core way and is untenable, and it's obvious.
The crisis narrative, the way it's used in popular culture, is somewhat linked to the problem-solving narrative. We're still doing the same thing over and over again. We're still framing even the solutions in a mechanistic, humanity above nature, frame nature as other, even if with those nature-based solutions, or all those kind of lingo that you now get in well-meaning circles. It still puts nature somehow out there, and what we need to really have a deeper conversation about is the nature in here, and how we live in narrative, and the whole thing is a story as well as a reality. And when we change the story, the reality literally shifts. And all of it actually has to do with how we understand health. If you understand health as a dynamic process, then things change. And understanding that it's not humanity's crisis, but it's life's crisis. That's our biggest crisis, that we don't get, that if we even think about it as the crisis of humanity, we're perpetuating an understanding that is separating us from a matrix that we're actually expressions of. So the crisis in that framing is that we need to understand that what we're trying to heal and nurture is a planetary process of which we're like fruit bodies popping up from a much larger mycelium. Our story is hugely important, and yet it's one story in a larger story. And so it's that paradox of not falling into the kind of, oh yeah, humans are cancer on the planet and better, the life would be better without us narrative, because we do have a role, because we are life, and we have a fascinating role, but it's not ours. We're part of it. And like we have done, understand ourselves as regenerative expressions and custodians of place, stewards of life, where life is kin, where the world is alive. Basically, we're talking about creating a 21st century expression of an animist worldview.
Animism is a way of understanding that the world is sensuous, and how you perceive is an active way of participating with the world. I think it's a practice of stretching or reaching more than midway. And I think it's allowing things to have meaning, have substance that you can discover if you show up in your way and you form a kinship, you entangle yourself in it. And for the curious, it's just bottomless how beautiful that is and how generous that is. And that is like a practice that can be held sort of in a daily way, in a small way. And that brings a kind of loop where perceiving and participating in the world is like with it, not upon it. And that seems counter to a lot of the sort of society-nature divides. I think it's inviting a kind of question of like, how do you want to participate in the significance of things?
I think we need to have these conversations at a scale that is related to our species' survival pattern. And that is what I would now call bioregioning. Being expressions of place in a bounded territory that we dwell in as our life space, and we, whether as nomads or settling, understand that the cycles of that system and even wise and periodic disruptions of the cycles of that system can bring that system into higher states of diversity and abundance. And that is the art of indigenous land management, of nurturing the process by which life wants to create conditions conducive to life as a participant and expressions of that system. And that's how we survived for nearly 200,000 years. What we call history is the aberration, the last 10,000 years. Like it's a blip in time. Like you could say, from a long-term ecological perspective, a species might be forgiven 5 to 10,000 years of a maladaptive pathway, but then overall feedback will be such that that species will be invited to make a choice.
This moment doesn't call for either indigenous systems and ways of knowing or Western systems and ways of knowing, but a breeding together of the two, and that they have evolved through different ways of being, but they are both here and they can both serve our work at this moment, but they need to be connected to place and to purpose in my perspective. The nature of life is that it is networked, it is regenerative, it is intelligent, and it is creative. These are Fridtjof Capra's life principles. And of course, any system within the earth is a living system and must align with these principles, or it will destroy the earth and will be inherently an unstable system.
For me, a regenerative culture is a expression of life's regenerative impulse, deeply nested and rooted in the biocultural uniqueness of place, meaning the geology, the hydrology, the flora, the fauna of a particular region, the climate zones, climate patterns, and the changes of all of that over time have shaped a relationship to place in which human culture is an expression of that living landscape and tries to meet its needs in ways that allow for that wider system to be healthy and resilient, in full awareness that it is the resource base for meeting needs, but not seeing it as a resource base, but as family, as more life, more relations. And that describes all our history. So the important bit when we talk about regenerative cultures is to not place it as some sort of problem-solving future utopia. If we frame it in that way, as the new thing that needs to be brought in, that you need to do courses to understand how it works, we've given away what this actually is trying to offer, which is to remember that we have life on our side, that regeneration is a fundamental process of life in which evolution has built for millions of years. And only when we anchor the story about regeneration in that fundamental pattern of all life and ourselves as expressions of life in the full capacity and capability of being regenerative expressions, of living in right relationships and creating conditions conducive to life. Our ancestors, if they had not managed to do that, would not have lived long enough to be our ancestors. So you and I are the proof that the human lineage has managed to be regenerative in place at points. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made it that long.
I observe a lot of dis-ease and people and ecosystems and communities and cultures falling out of health, out of thriving, and that bringing more and more people into a living systems framework and way of seeing the world. And when they find regeneration as a relevant frame for whatever space they're working in, economics, technology, governance, agriculture, it feels right to them. People are leaving their jobs and leaving their worldviews, their previous worldviews and ontologies behind to return to serving life in this way and to being stewards and to taking on the responsibility that comes with knowing we as humans, it is our ecological function as life to regenerate. And the earth is crying out for us to engage in that regeneration right now.
One field within the regenerative space is regenerative economics, and regenerative economics can be understood as an outgrowth of a greater critical mass of people understanding the consequence of extractive economics. So regenerative economics is to say, if we program our institutions and our algorithms and our legal codes and our systems of value to say that value is created by extracting things, then we've trained all of our societal systems to mine and kill. And they're going to do that because that's what we taught them to do, and they're going to do it at this scale of software and with network propagating effects that we're only beginning to comprehend. So regenerative economics says we have to say that living systems in their inherent way are valuable as a necessary counterpoint to an extractive paradigm of value. And if we don't do that, if we don't come up with a way to retrain our economic models, whether that's through what's considered productive, how we calculate indices of like productivity or like GDP, things like that. If we don't dramatically like reinvent what is a more holistic understanding of like the sort of dual relationship of value creation, of which there is some extraction, but there's a necessary replenishment, cultivation, and nourishment of the system in the first place, then you know, we don't stand a chance to go forward.
The pattern that hasn't worked is the pattern of seeing a problem in everything and then getting the experts in to study that problem and then having a process of abstraction happen. And then they try to come up with a solution which the designers then get to pitch to the investors, and then some of those get picked as, yes, let's roll them out and implement them everywhere. Then when it's actually done, those solutions have absolutely nothing to do with the local culture. The local culture doesn't even understand why it's being implemented. And then we're surprised it doesn't work. But if we resourced people in place to have a conversation about how to manifest the potential of their unique situation, the problems still show up everywhere. But the minute you flip it and you don't try to solve things in the abstract and the global, but you meet the person behind the manifestation of the problem, and that person has a name and has relationships with other people in that place. As you begin to see all those problems with real names and real faces and real stories, something else foregrounds, not the problem, but the potential of doing things differently with these real people. And that's the magic of the scale where regeneration can actually build something. It's in the fabric of relationships. It's in understanding that you don't need to convince people, you need to make people in place understand that they are actually caring and loving and healing and sharing and celebrating local culture and celebrating local knowledge and law.
What is a bioregion? A bioregion, I like to say, is a life place, is what the word means simply, but it can be defined by its hard lines, soft lines, and human lines, or its geological lines, ecological lines, and cultural lines. So it's a place that is not defined by political boundaries. Many political boundaries were determined through violence and colonization and genocide. And instead, a bioregion is defined by these lines that have been there and will be there, and many of them that are shifting and are dynamic, depending on the season, depending on how the climate is changing. So it's a region that people decide works ecologically and culturally, and there's a coherence there, and they want to engage in economic governance, ecological management, and broader social and cultural governance of that region according to those lines.
We're talking about a biogeophysical terrain where the dynamic of the living landscape informs how people settle in that landscape. But at the same time, it's a territory of consciousness. In the modern age is best approximated by, like Isabel Carlyle always likes to tell people, just listen into your own body when you drive away from home. There normally is a place in the landscape, a ridge, a river, a tunnel, or whatever, that you cross, and it's like you've crossed the threshold and you're out of the Shire.
Our colleague David Hankey, who's one of the kind of OGs of the bioregional movement and a dear friend and mentor of mine, says that bioregions are the natural unit of place-based regeneration, that it's the right size and scale, and because of the way boundaries are drawn that honor the bioculture of that place, that it is the unit that is the most viable for implementing a regeneration strategy.
So bioregionalism is a watershed-oriented view of a lot of things, and it asks how can governance processes, financial institutions, political processes be more tightly coupled to the kind of upstream, downstream dynamics of where you live. And it's more than just about the watershed itself, but it's also like a value shed. And so that within a particular framework of energy and resource exchange, nutrient transfer that we would call a bioregion with its unique properties, there's a system of value that should reflect that place. And so what that looks like for coral reefs in tropical islands versus old growth temperate rainforests versus tropical rainforests looks different.
The people in a landscape come together and care for that landscape again as expressions of that landscape, and not in a parochial kind of, oh, this is our place and we are from here and all the others are not from here and therefore we're just going to defend our little bioregion and prep at the regional scale. That is not what bioregioning is about. That's what bioregionalism can create. An identity that is actually othering out of, because it's creating such a strong, this is us.
Our places are certainly what we all have in common, and in a period of increasing polarization, I believe and have seen that bringing people together to envision what they want for the future of their place, particularly if you're looking at a 20, 50, 100-year time scale, almost everyone wants the same thing and shares the same vision. And it's not about yachts or sports cars or GDP. It's about clean air, clean water, healthy soil, alive food, healthy, laughing children, good education, clean, safe shelter. It's about culture that is alive and dynamic and inspiring.
And maybe one version of bioregionalism is an elegant container for a resuscitation of people's interest and willingness to be political subjects and participate in crafting new kinds of worlds or having their voice be heard. You see that with a lot of the regeneration movement, is that you see people who would be politically not aligned in clear ways, finding commonality around basic common sense and how it's shaping the world that they see in their immediate context or in their home. It's a nice counterpoint to the sort of increased polarization because there's a sort of irrefutability of it. It seems very obvious for people who have spent any time somewhere in particular, and that can be an incredibly meaningful political force for rediscovering baselines that seem to be slipping.
I have seen this local work bring together people that otherwise wouldn't be in the same social circles, and there might be a lot of things dividing people. But when you're working on restoring a riparian area in your backyard, or on planting a local community garden, this is something that everybody sees makes sense. And so starting from the place up, we can embody regeneration and overcome our differences in worldviews, and see that many of the values that we're holding, there's a lot of alignment in them, particularly when it comes to creating a place that we want to live and that we want our kids and grandkids to be able to thrive in, as the world is becoming more and more chaotic. And I see this chaos kind of forcing us to come together in our places and overcome those differences to serve something that is bigger and longer than any of us.
And if we build the local narrative where everybody sees themselves as an expression of this impulse that just comes through us because we are life and that's what life does, then we have a way of working in a community that is completely different, because you're not coming and saying, you need to listen, we need to do things differently. You flip it and encourage how life cares for life. And out of that, build a narrative that then brings people into understanding that this is really what life is all about. It's not about nature red and tooth and claw and competition and survival of the fittest in a kind of competitive power over way. Life is all about power with it's a symphony of symbiosis. It's not a collection of species fighting it out for survival. I think once we have the maturity of understanding that our role is to heal the earth and right relationships among all of life, and that it doesn't matter whether we make it, it matters that life makes it, then we'll build a culture mature enough to actually make it through this polycrisis. So basically, in a short sentence, we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, but we also shouldn't call ourselves a cancer on the planet.